Are you using your Boss DS-1 all wrong? Well, a couple of videos seem to think that you are. Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo J. Karjalainen, and it's good to have you along. The Boss DS-1, absolute classic, one of the best budget distortion pedals out there, probably. What do I know? There are a couple of popular YouTube videos out there that seem to be saying that you're using the Boss DS-1 all wrong. And the way they've done this is that they've come up with tips. Oddly enough, the tips seem to be exactly the same. So, probably one has copied the other. So, tip number 1, do not use a super clean tone. Use a tone with a little bit of breakup. That's from one video. From the other video, it's tip number 4, run it into some clipping. Tip number 2, do not use a guitar with very high output pickups. The DS-1 doesn't like it. Tip number 1 in the other video, don't use hot pickups. Tip number 3, use tone from 7 to 11 o'clock. From 12 and beyond, the DS-1 can sound fizzy. Tip number 2 in the other video, keep the tone low. Tip number 4, use the distortion knob wisely. After 12, it just makes the sound more compressed. And in the other video, tip number 3, keep the distortion under 12 o'clock. So let's go through these and see if they make sense. They did have a couple of other tips as well, if I remember correctly. One was that leave it on all the time, just roll off volume for a clean tone. So today I'll be using 2 guitars. One is a Tele-style thing by Earth with single coils that are not very high output at all. And I'll be using the Marshall first, and I'll use the Roland to check out the clean, should you use it with a clean. So let's just take that you should use an amp with a bit of breakup as a given for now. This is my clean signal. So there's a bit of breakup going on. I have the DS-1 set everything halfway. So already we're making one mistake, or I am. I have the tone over 11 o'clock. This is what it sounds like now. So let's experiment with the tone. All the way down. And let's add tone. Just a bit over 12 o'clock. Almost all the way up. And all the way up. Now I think that's one of the kind of universally agreed upon things with this pedal, that you don't really use a lot of tone. You keep it under halfway. somewhere and you should be fine, depending upon the pickups on your guitar. These are a bit brighter. So that's point number 1. Let's try out tip number 4. Use the distortion knob wisely. All the way up. Just under halfway. Now this is one of those tips that I think is slightly dependent upon the amp that you're using and how much breakup is going on from the amp. So we'll get back to that tip slightly later when we get to the clean amp. Next tip is do not use a guitar with very high output pickups. Now we've tried it with this one, so you've heard what it sounds like with this. Let's put this one away. This is a custom guitar that I have, very loosely modeled after a gem, and this pickup is a DiMarzio Evolution. I forget if it's, I think there were different versions. But regardless, it is quite high output. Okay, so that's not too bad in my opinion. Let's do the other no-no thing of adding, what's it called, distortion. Drop tone a bit. We can add level as well because the amp is breaking up. That would add not more volume but basically more gain. Probably for some uses, use guitars with low output pickups. But maybe there are some uses where you can use high output pickups. Let's try the clean amp. Okay, so now the clean sound is... pretty clean. Now, the reason I made this video really was the single coil or the low output pickup thing and the clean amp thing. Because Steve Vai and Joe Satriani have used this pedal for ages. Both have used humbuckers, fairly high outputs. And I'm not too sure about Satriani, but Steve Vai has used it more, or said that he uses it more with a clean. He prefers it that way. And the way he did it was this. Distortion all the way up. because it's very shrill now. Again, tone depends on guitar and amp. Drop tone a bit. Even with totally the wrong amp, which the Cube, Steve Vai's never used that, as far as I know. Even with the totally wrong amp, it sounds, I think it sounds reminiscent of him. So what is the conclusion of this video? Well, it's certainly not to bash the two other videos that I mentioned. I think there were two. There might have been more, actually. These tips that they provide, they do work for some cases, but these videos were coming more from a grunge type of perspective, whereas Steve Vai, not really grunge. But that's the thing. There is no wrong use of anything. Experiment with stuff. If it sounds good, it is good. This last sound could get better results with a different amp. Tweaking stuff could get pretty good results. If you're talking about a lot of distortion on that, you don't need a lot of distortion for crunchy riffs, but for lead playing, you need a bit more, at least for that Steve Vai type of thing. So maybe the point of this video is trust your ears. Listen to what the sound is and tweak accordingly, and there's no such thing as a wrong thing. If you think it sounds good, fair play. And if I say it sounds rubbish and you think it sounds good, it's good for you. Except if it's the Fender frontman. Sorry, couldn't help myself. If you want to watch my video on what is probably the best budget overdrive pedal ever, the Boss SD-1, there's a video here. Other than that, I hope you consider supporting the channel via one of the links in the description. There's Bandcamp where you can buy my music. You can even listen to it for free before you decide. But above all, I hope you found this video in some way useful or entertaining. And I hope you have a very nice day. Take care. See you. Bye.